Welcome back to The Gaze. I'm Enriquina, and this is my show, Talk for More. I'm glad you're back here today to meet us on a digital platform of a brave new world, Future Europe, a space where we find and highlight all of the most significant events in the region affecting our European future, and we'll discuss it with the best of experts to keep you posted. I'm happy to give you our today's guests, Ivan Us, PhD in economics, chief consultant of the Center for Foreign Policy Studies of the National Institute of Strategic Studies. So very nice to meet you, Ivan. Thank you for your time.
Nice to meet you too, and greetings to all of our audience.
Thank you. On 21st to 22nd June 2023, the United Kingdom, jointly with Ukraine, hosted the International Ukraine Recovery Conference, URC 2023 in London. It is a continuation of the cycle of joint annual events, with the last one conducted with Switzerland in Lugano. The previous conference, held for the first time during the ongoing Russian aggression against Ukraine, launched the Lugano Principles, which laid the foundation for the reconstruction process of Ukraine and united the world in its efforts. The Ukraine Recovery Conference is dedicated to Ukraine's transformation and was symbolically launched in London in 2017 as the Ukraine Reform Conference. URC 2023 was focused on mobilizing international support for Ukraine's economic and social stabilization and recovery from the devastating aftermath of this war, including through emergency assistance for immediate needs and financing private sector participation in the reconstruction process. Conference has broad participation of the international community, international financial institutions, the private sector and the civil society to mobilize support for Ukraine. We continue to implement a rather ambitious reform agenda and look for ways to support investment in Ukraine while reducing risks. My first question to you, as I understand the goal of this conference, our Ukrainian goal, is to sell our image, a country's image, as a successful country where investments will be safe. Did we do that? Did we achieve the goal?
So, of course, for Ukraine, first of all, our target, just to explain to our partners, that from emotions that we have, that our partners have to support Ukraine, to help Ukraine, we should go to more realistic thinking that Ukraine could be a good example of economy that will be rebuilt from the aggression against Western world, against Western values. Because as Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, Chrystia Freeland, said at the first days of that war in 2022, that there are three examples when the good thing faced with an evil. At first, it was in time of the civil war in the United States between South and North. Then it was in the sky of Britons in 1940 when war between, not West, but at least countries that were opposed to Hitler versus Hitler. And third one is Kiev. This phrase was said at the end of February 2022. That's why I talk about Kiev. So that's why it was emotions. And now for Ukraine, it's very important to say that, guys, it's not only a question of rebuilding Ukraine. It's a question to show to the whole world that the same aggression should not be taken by any other country in any other time after that, because it should be example. Ukraine, of course, tried to say that yes, we can rebuild our economy, but we need partners. We could not do that. That's why our Minister of Infrastructure, Kubrakov, he said that his vision of rebuilding Ukraine, that 50% of all money should be Russian money that's arrested and given to Ukraine, 25% help of our partners, 25% actually Ukrainian local money. So that is the ideology. And now we showing to our partners that we want to have such a formula, and of course Ukraine will do their best to be a good country that could be a very good example of so-called the Marshall Plan 2.0, because a lot of people talking about that.
Okay, I'll read you. But are we doing good so far? Are we building this image for our international society that after our inevitable victory, this will be the safe place for investment? Are we doing good?
Absolutely, because for us it's important that we want to be this example. For our partners it's important that we actually saw as an example, because all our, let's call it so, taxpayers in countries that support Ukraine, they constantly repeat one phrase: "To whom you want to give this money? This country is full of corruption," and so on and so forth. And Ukraine, of course, want to say that yes, of course, we have this problem, but let's be frank. If you look to the Transparency International ranking about countries and their attitude to corruption, the leaders in that actually list two countries, namely Denmark and New Zealand, with the rank 90. So from 190, it means 10% of corruption exists even in the top two countries in the world without corruption.
Well, that's humankind. I mean, this happens everywhere.
Yes, that's why for Ukraine it's important to say that yes, this problem we have, but we try to do something. We will not stay at one place, and we expect to see support of our partners not only in rebuilding of Ukraine, but in building a country with less corruption, at least how it's possible. So we understand that it's impossible to destroy all corruption, but at least we are moving in that direction. And of course, it will be interesting to whole world to invest money. If the money will be invested, it creates a good investment climate. It will be interesting to work in Ukraine. Furthermore, unfortunately, war gives a new vision of Ukrainian economy, built first of all on production of military weapons. That's why now, in time of war, we have a deal with one of top producers of weapons in the world, the German company Rheinmetall, for building the same facilities with Ukrainian company Ukроборонпром to produce tanks. Because everyone understands that in the Ukrainian field now, they will have the best advertisement as they will be used, not in theory.
In practice? In
practice. Okay. It will be a place where in practice we can show.
Great. So we are building our image like on a solid background and on the solid foundation of a good results of the business doing right now here. But this is the government or the very big business, let's say. We will talk later on about the expectations of the private sector, which probably is a totally different thing too. We have some results from the conference already. So the United States will invest $1.3 billion for power system repair and modernization of critical infrastructure. Great Britain will invest $3 billion as a 3-year loan. France announced 40 million euros as an additional financial assistance for Ukraine 2023. Germany, 381 million euro for additional humanitarian aid. European Investment Bank, 840 million euros for infrastructure restoration. The European Union will cover 45% of all Ukraine's need for financing its recovery until 2027. This includes grants, loans, and frozen assets, just by the way, of the Russian Federation, the approximate amount of which is 50 billion euros.
The eyes of the world are looking at us and at whether we will defeat Russian aggression exactly as freedom deserves to win, that is without compromising our values. Also, the world is watching to see if we will restore normal life in such a way that our transformation will land an ideological defeat on the aggressor. We protect Ukraine, and thus we protect freedom. And when we build Ukraine, we'll build freedom. Country, region, continent, world. It's a global task. And I want to thank you. And of course, I thank Switzerland, Germany, France, Italy, every country where we have agreed on key principles for recovery. At this conference, we must move from vision to agreements and from agreements to real projects.
The cost of rebuilding Ukraine and modernizing the Ukrainian economy may reach to $500 billion within 10 years. Total annual expenditures can reach more than $110 billion. To finance all that, the size of the economy is should be significantly larger than what we have now. This goal can be achieved only by developing the private sector and creating conditions for investments according to the Center for Economic Recovery. Returning to the private sector question, it's a totally different story. Do you think that after we'll win tomorrow, what signs are we going to give to private sector to tell them that, yes, we're a safe place? Okay, Rheinmetall, this is one thing. This is a very big, governmentally owned partially company, like super large. But what about the private sector? Will they see how they are going to see this wow effect, that Ukraine is the place for a safe investment right here and now for your $1,000, for your $2,000, whatever you have in the stash?
Much will depend on the direction of our rebuilding, because, you know, when we are talking about rebuild Ukraine, I always remind the same project created by the European Commission in the previous year. It was 16 or 18th of May 2022, when the European Commission wrote the plan, Rebuild Ukraine, actually it's titled, and they divided it into two parts. First part, it's a support in the moment of war. So they understand that Ukraine needs some financial support and for survive. But the most important second part, it's reforms in Ukraine, and they said that we help to you to rebuild your country, but instead of that, you should build a country based on all the European principles. All support will be based on the directives of the European Union. And the idea of that support just to make Ukraine a country that absolutely logically can be part of the European Union, because Ukraine constantly repeats that we want to be a member of NATO and we want to be a member of the European Union. And if Ukraine makes those reforms that our partners ask to us, it's not only European Union, it's International Monetary Fund, it's other organizations, of course, yes, it will be probably hard to rebuild something inside ourselves, but at the final of the story, Ukraine will be a country which can actually be, as I said, logically part of EU, and of course with good climate, with guarantees, because there are a lot of questions that, Ukraine can produce a lot of interest rates for the investment in Ukraine, but without guarantees and without...
Well, it's nothing without guarantees.
Yes, but it is nothing, absolutely I agree. The question not in quantity of money that you can receive in Ukraine.
Absolutely,
question,
no guarantees,
yes, that's why I think that we will rebuild our private sector, yes, but we rebuild first of all our judicial system. Without good judicial system, it's hard to promise something to our partners.
It's impossible.
It's impossible to create a good investment climate.
Right.
So that's why I really have big belief that the process of rebuilding of Ukraine will constantly connected with the requirements of our partners from EU, with those reforms, with reforms of judicial system, with reforms of others, of our tax system, because we understand it's so problem, with another decentralization, because when everyone said about, at least before start of the full-scale war, because war actually starts 2014, now we have full-scale war. A lot of people said about federalization, but guys, we could do federalization without federalization. It means decentralization, when people at the place received more powers and more taxes go to them. Furthermore, if more taxes go to them, they can develop their parts of Ukraine, and that parts could be interesting to investors. Now, I think very good example is Nikolaevsky region. Why Nikolaevsky? Because our President Zelensky have a deal with Denmark that they will support that region and help to rebuild it. Now we see the big interest of Denmark to that region. According to the person that is head of Nikolaevska power office, probably
Authority.
Yeah, authority, yes, sorry. Authority, he said that we have such a close connection with Denmark that probably we can become relatives in nearest future, because really they invest money, they say to us what to do, they think about our energy facilities, they give to us options for wind energy. It's very important. So, and that cooperation create a good, as for me, field for future prosperity of at least one region, and demonstrations how we could cope with at least one European country, but finally it couldn't be not only Denmark.
Yeah, I mean, this is the example. This is only the start. And this is actually, that was my next question. Because this is the private sector, give them the private example. With the small companies doing small business directly with the people that they know in the Ukrainian land, and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because Ukraine is a brand, let's be honest. And this is a winning brand of brave people. Let's turn it into money to make these people live good.
That's why I said about from emotion to reality.
Yeah.
Because now it's emotion. People support Ukraine all over the world, because especially from so-called Western world, but Japan in this world. That's why I joke that when you say
let's call it collective West.
Yes,
the nations that share the idea of freedom.
Who based on the ideas of domination of rule of law.
Okay.
That's very important. And now it's emotions, but how to transform transform that emotions into practicing to say that, guys, we thank you to the support, but let's come to cases, direct cases, and so demonstrate to us what you can help in rebuilding our, as I said, not only country, but our law system and other moments. And of course, I think that it can give result. And really, I believe that the end of the story will be not with the victory of Ukraine in this war, but with the Ukrainian joining to EU and becoming not the last member of the European Union. Because, you know, this war give a very interesting example. Ukraine gave a new momentum to NATO. NATO was so, before start of full-scale war in Ukraine, a lot of people said whether NATO will be or not will be. A lot of countries tried to economize money on defense expenditures and not to sell money, spend money for that. And what happened after the start of full-scale war? Two countries that didn't plan to be in NATO, namely Sweden and Finland, decided to become NATO members. NATO understand why the structure was created several decades ago, why they need it, and now a lot more and more countries says that yes, we'll give more money to our security sector, to our defense sector, just because we understand why it's impossible.
Well, this is again our humankind, until it was quite a rusty structure. And all the international, I'm sorry, but all the international organizations are quite slow in reacting on the objective reality. Well, when this objective reality just invades you in tanks and starts to shell your cities, abduct your children and killing your family relatives, and maybe it is time to rethink your safety, your military budget.
Absolutely. Actually, I constantly remind the former Prime Minister of UK, Boris Johnson, who said a very good phrase when the war arose.
He said many. Yeah.
Yes, he said many good things, but he said to Europe that, guys, you should think whether you're for money or for values on which European Union is based. Because sometimes you have a feeling that you think how to receive more money from cooperation with Russia, how to receive energy from Russia, how not to create ban for Russian oligarchs. As on the one hand, we have the war with a lot of victims. On the other, people closely connected with power in Russia have a good option to have arrest in France, in other countries of the European Union. That's why it's rebuilt.
That happened to Europe twice. First World War I and Second one.
Furthermore, if we return back to first days of war or even before war, what weapon we received from NATO members? Weapon for partisan war, not for serious. But then, and why it happened? Because they were sure, their security were sure, that Ukraine can be conquered for, I don't know, Kiev for 4 days, hold Ukraine probably for 2 months or so. And there will be partisan war, and then they give to us weapon for that partisan war. But when they understand with that partisan weapon, we stop Russia, stop the aggression, that we can fight even with that. In that moment, I remember it was the end of March or beginning of April, when Ukraine released the Kiev region, Zhytomyr region, Sumy region, Chernigov region. It was a very interesting interview or video in a very popular German magazine Bild, when they saw our soldiers go on foot, without tanks, without any other serious technique. And they said that, that guys without tanks release the territory, but imagine what will be if they will receive those tanks. And I'm sure that in the moment when Ukraine received Leopards and other tanks, that played its role, because they think that, they demonstrate to the whole world that they could do something without tanks, but we should give to them tanks, because in that case, we said that, only with tanks they released more.
The deadliest weapon of Ukrainian nation is Ukrainian nation itself.
Yes.
On the morning of June 6th, Russians detonated explosives. They blasted in the dam of Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, said that, according to the preliminary data, the blasting of the hydroelectric power station was carried out by Unit 205, of the Russian armed forces. As a result, huge areas, that is more than 80 settlements and villages in some districts of Kherson in particular, were just flooded, washed away. Areas damaged the most are those at the low-lying left bank of Dnipro River, which is Ukrainian territory under Russian occupation. Reconstruction of the KAKHOVSKA hydroelectric power plant will last 5 years and will cost us up to $1 billion. It was stated by the General Director of Ukrhydroenergo, Igor Sirota. Obviously, it is next to impossible for a country at war to find these resources by itself. So my question is, how and where should Ukraine be looking for the funds for extraction?
Yes, so of course the main question, that's why we have this conference in London, before that in Lugano. Very interesting that both of them happened not in EU. It's for me interesting.
So what's so interesting about it? What is the difference?
Yes, so it's such a feeling that EU still didn't make decision. Actually, it was a very interesting moment in Ukrainian source, Ukrainian Pravda, that in 7 minutes difference, it was news that EU don't know how to use Russian freeze assets, and next news that Ukraine proposed how to use Russian freeze assets. So, but EU before that said we don't know. Actually, the UK that keep silent on that question because UK direct a lot of investment. And this conference tried to say that, we are thinking about how to give to Ukraine this money based on the US experience, because United States of America really has experience when they give to Ukraine $5.4 million of Russian oligarch Malafeyev, just according to decision of their procurator of New York, as I remember, state. So nevertheless, it was a first example, and it's very important for such system of law that exists in the United States of America, because we understand that it's the same with UK and so on, that when the president
the president is the most important.
Presidential law played a role, and it was president. And now, as I said before, this reconstruction should be based on those principles that our Minister Kubrakov said, that first of all, 50% Russian assets, but not only arrested assets. We should think about future, and future, it's a creating formula how Russia can pay reparations, actually. Yes, we cannot use term reparation. We understand that it's sensitive political. Nevertheless, I think that should be formula that Russia could be returned to global trade, but they will not directly receive money. All the money that Russia could receive for their gas, oil, and other sources could be accumulated in one account. And for example, 70% goes to Russia and 30% for rebuilding Ukraine. But I think the figure can be discussed. And whenever a lot of people said whether there will be talks between Russia and Ukraine, I said yes, of course, about how many percent of that money Russia will receive and what Ukraine receive. That will be discussed.
It's all good on paper, and here in the studio we can talk for more about it. But can you imagine the amount of political work, and can you imagine the economical work that it needs to be done, and to accumulate all the funds that Russia receives for enormous resources, because it's an enormously big country with enormous resources, and who would ever do the job of reviewing all that and sharing the parts of this money and the frozen accounts? But regarding these assets, there was $4.5 million in the United States. Well, the legislation of United States and United Kingdom is two totally different legislations, and there are a lot of Russian property standing right now in the middle of London. And do you really believe that it is going to happen, that these, real estate of enormous value, hundreds of thousands of millions, the billions of dollars, will be ever sold, and this money will be given to Ukraine on a legal basis, not just as an example, we did it, here you go, 4.5 million, which is nothing. But these are reparations. I don't know, maybe it is in terms of political terms, it's quite sensible to talk it but I can't even figure out any other term. It is reparations, because this is a criminal war that is going on right now. And it has been waged by Russian Federation onto Ukraine. So these must be undone in some way possible. And these are reparations. Do you believe this is going to happen, really?
First of all, we should say that our partners should guarantee that it will be. Rebuilding of Ukraine. Secondly, we should make a question. Who should pay for that? The UK taxpayers, US taxpayers, European Union taxpayers, or Russia? And made to them this choice. Either you confiscate the money of Russians, sell it and give to Ukraine, or you should give your own money. I don't think that our partners say that, we'll give to you our money, but not Russian.
No, they won't. But they can also say we gave you enough military, we gave you enough help, why you are accusing us that we didn't do enough for you. I mean, obviously, I think this is going to happen, but I think that it's a totally new legislation system that has to be built, because we're taking someone's property, and it is someone's property at the moment. Okay, they're enemies of Ukraine, but this is a private property, so we're literally taking it, selling it, and giving it to a third party, which is unbelievable.
Actually,
in that amount.
That's why returning to project that presented by European Commission, that when they talk about rebuilding Ukraine, that the fund that will be accumulating sources, financial sources, will be controlled not by Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. It will be joint control of Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine and the European Commission. So it means that the European Commission will take responsibility for using of this money. So it not means that they give money to Ukraine. No, they give money to European Commission, and European Commission will think how to use it. That actually eliminates the corruptional element. That is very important. It talks with taxpayers and electorate of those countries. Second, what is very important, so this situation should be a clear sign to all countries all over the world who think to do the same thing that Russia did. I don't want to call their names, but I think a lot of people understand.
This is a message to future dictators.
Yes, to future dictators, that in case, and even not only to future dictators, but to surrounding of those dictators, that in case if you are not stopped, your leader from the same policy, your private property can be arrested and given to a country against which this military action could be. That is an example for future. That's why I think that the global world, the global rules will be changed. For example, when the war arose, full-scale war, it was the idea to send Russia out of the World Trade Organization. It was a very good idea. But when the US who proposed this idea, when their lawyers start to think how to do that, understand that there is no such an option, because the rules of World Trade Organization know how to give country chance to be part of WTO, but not to give chance how to exclude country.
I mean, take a look at the United Nations Security Council.
Yes,
and there's a thug in the end of the table, in a chair, literally.
Yes.
International. I mean, it's insulting, and it's stupid.
And it's undermining belief in the United Nations Council of Security, just because everyone understands that country who is a member of that Security Council, they can start aggression. And
being presiding over the chair. Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
I mean, just sitting there. And
in being the head of the Security Council. For a month, but nevertheless, it happened.
So this is why, Ukraine changed and will change a lot of paradigms, I believe.
Yes.
The head of the main directorate of intelligence, Kirill Budanov, admits that there is a threat of an explosion or an accident at the Zaporizhzhya nuclear power plant because the occupiers additionally mined the cooler. According to him, firstly, by destroying the dam of KAKHOVSKA HPP, the Russians destroyed the normal access of water to the coolers operating at the Zaporizhzhya nuclear power plant. And secondly, during the time that the Zaporizhzhya NPP was in the hands of the occupiers, it was additionally mined. In particular, the cooler was mined again. So we expect destruction in Ukraine, as in the south, as in the east. And I have an economical question. How can Ukraine recover the burned land? I mean, what do you think about that? Well, first of all, let's split this question into two parts. Do you personally believe, as a person, not just as a PhD in economics, do you believe this is going to happen? There is a possibility that Russians can really going nuclear, because this is what is going to happen if they're going to blast the MPP just as they did with Kakhovka Dam. And the second question, what are we doing with this burnt land stand? So, because there will be hundreds of kilometers of burnt ground, of ground zero. It's a disaster, the planetary disaster.
Absolutely, it will be a big disaster. Actually, even when we talk about Kakhovka, we should take into account that according to estimations, preliminary, but nevertheless 10,000 hectares of agricultural land were underwater.
Ruined, yeah.
Ruined, actually. I remember I have a big air in one Arabic channel, and we discussed the influence of explosion of Kakhovka Dam on the global food security.
Okay.
Because in Dubai, where this Shark TV channel is situated, they said that we have in Middle East fear that it influence on the global food security, where Kakhovka, where Dubai, nevertheless.
Well, they have fears. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, so the Ukrainian gives food to a lot of countries.
27% growth of prices for wheat. Grain index of the World Bank increased in May compared to January 2022 under pressure of Ukrainian war. So, of course, after the explosion in Kakhovka Dam, I absolutely agree with Israel expert Auslander, who said that, that after that explosion, I really believe that Russia can explode it at Zaporizhzhya nuclear power station.
Do you believe this is going to happen, personally?
Personally, no. I still not believe, and I explain why. Because, first of all, as several deputies from United States of America, from UK, they directly say to Russia that if you exploded Zaporizhzhya nuclear power station, it will be the 5th article of NATO. We will think that it's a menace to whole NATO, and we used
the act of direct aggression.
Yes, it will be direct aggression, and we used our military power against you, because it will be really menace. And another moment, especially when Russia started playing with the nuclear power weapon in Belarus, I remember the negative reaction of China. And after that statement that they give a nuclear weapon to Belarus, Chinese ambassador in EU said a phrase that our words about big friendship with Russia, it's only words without any activity.
But this is always the case with China.
Yes.
And they're very strict about that. We have interests of China in the first place. That's it.
Yes.
But going nuclear is a totally different story. But what is going now? I mean, the whole world should be very serious about, even if Russia don't do it, there is a possibility that they will.
Absolutely.
And we should take it as seriously as possible. We should stop it now. How? Do you have any idea how can we stop this nuclear blackmailing, for example?
The best version, they occupied it, actually. I understand that now it looks very probably unserious, but who knows? Because every time when we seriously talk about the Zaporizhzhya nuclear power station, I return to March 2022 and the situation when Russia controlled Chernobyl nuclear power station. How many talks was, something could happen there, that Russia can explode it, and so on and so forth. But Russia leave it without any activities. That's why I think that we should work, global community, not only Ukraine, with China, with India, with other big countries who can press on Russia and say, guys, if Ukraine will start releasing territory near Energodar, near Zaporizhzhya nuclear power station, we can help you to guarantee that your soldiers leave it and will be not murdered there, but instead of that, don't do something here, do not explode it. I think that it's the only way how we can guarantee. Yes, probably now it looks like entail, but when Russia stayed in Chernobyl, this fear exists for months or so, even more. They occupy Chernobyl nuclear power station at the first day.
I read you. What I'm trying to, the idea that I'm trying to deliver, as we have to, I believe so. I'm not a military guy, but I believe so that we have to take the option they will do something wrong, even not intentionally, as a very serious example. Okay, they didn't do anything at the Chernobyl power plant, but this is Ukraine, this is Ukrainian land, and you are now proposing, let's talk it over with Russia. What is the sense to talk it over? We have to make them leave. Do we have any international leverage, including the international organization? Take a look at Mr. Grossi. He says, I know that there are mines there, but this is only for security reasons. The security reason having mines on a nuclear power plant?
Oh, it's a problem of, as for me, it's a global problem when the world was not ready for war of such scale, let's be frank. And that's why we have problem with sanctions, we have problem with existence of the sanction. Now there will be 11th package of sanctions where we, according to rumors, there will be moments that decrease option how to actually go against those sanctions. That thinking
suppose, yeah. I mean,
alternative ways. But guys, when you make sanctions, you should do this immediately ways that will not help to actually do something bypass all sanctions.
This is circumventing the sanctions.
Yes, but now in 11 package, we only say about that. That's why it's a problem. But as I said, global community was not ready to react. Now, I think that it's a good lesson that I wish to be influenced on the future. And after Ukrainian war, we change this whole world, the rules of that war, and create such mechanism. Now, I think that the only way is, as I said, deoccupation, and why we need China and India as two biggest country in the world. Now India bigger than China, and starting from this year, according to
in terms of economy,
yes,
well, they're too.
But economy, yes, China is bigger. Nevertheless, that they explain to Russia that in case of any explosion on the nuclear power stations that influence all over the world, at least in this area, they could be not so friendly to Russia.
Okay, I take that as an answer. Thank you for your detailed answer.
Thanks.
The main asset is people, always. Around 2.5 million before the war and around 7 million forced refugees during the war. What is to be done to return people to Ukraine? Not only from Europe, but also from the deep, remote western regions of Ukraine. What I mean is that as experts in economics, what would you suggest to bring, the people from deep western regions to the center, or maybe to make life better over there?
When we talk about refugees, not only Ukrainian, but all over the world, we understand that European problem, a lot of refugees from Middle East. Yes?
Okay, yes.
The best solution of this problem, I heard approximately 5 years ago from the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, who said that let's make new Europe in the Middle East. What do I hear in these words? That let's make life in Middle East the same as in Europe. And people will not think how to leave Middle East and go to Europe. Will think how to stay in Middle East and realize themselves there. The same situation in Ukraine. So one of the targets of this rebuilding of Ukraine is just to create a vision of perspective of this area. So that people who leave Ukraine under the pressure of war will think that for them it will be for better if they return. Second moment, of course, it's not popular. That after the end of war, the support of Ukrainian refugees in European Union and other countries will decrease or even stopped. Because they said that, guys, war is stopped, we could not support you. If you want to have normal life, return to your own country. There you can find some job. And for option to find job in Ukraine, of course, they need to help to us. And if these job places will be created with help of our partners, the problem of refugees for them disappear, because Ukrainian refugees understand that if they need to work, if they want to find the workplaces, for them it's better to do that in their own land. So it's one more argument to help the Ukraine to recover from this problem, just to create a prospects inside.
Ukraine.
Yes,
home.
yes, whole.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I believe this is the best way. It is widely believed that 2 experts is better than 1. We decided to go further with that. Since human expertise is limited to humans' knowledge and extent, let's ask the machine. Deus ex machina, ChatGPT, kindly agreed to answer our question. Talk for More asks, what should be the first priority for the government to rebuild the country after the war? ChatGPT answers, after a war, the government faces numerous challenges in rebuilding the country and restoring normalcy. While the specific priorities may vary based on the unique circumstances of each situation, several common areas often require immediate attention. The following are some key priorities that the government may consider when rebuilding a country after a war. First, security and stability. Establishing security and stability is crucial for creating a safe environment for citizens to return, rebuild their lives, and contribute to the recovery efforts. This involves disarming and demobilizing former combatants, establishing law enforcement agencies, and strengthening border security. Humanitarian aid and basic needs. Providing immediate humanitarian assistance is vital, including food, clean water, healthcare, and shelter for displaced populations. Prioritizing the well-being of affected individuals and communities is essential to restore their dignity and ensure their basic needs are met. infrastructure and rehabilitation. Repairing and rebuilding critical infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, and power supply systems, is crucial to enable the functioning of society. Infrastructure rehabilitation facilitates the delivery of essential services, promotes economic recovery, and improves the overall quality of life for the whole population. Governance and rule of law. Re-establishing effective governance structures and the rule of law is essential for political stability and social cohesion. This includes restoring or reforming government institutions, promoting transparency, accountability, and the respect for human rights. An inclusive and participatory approach to governance can help rebuild trust between citizens and the government. Economic recovery and livelihoods. Supporting economic recovery is vital to rebuild livelihoods and create employment opportunities. Governments can focus on revitalizing key sectors, attracting investments, promoting entrepreneurship, and providing financial assistance to individuals and businesses. Rebuilding the economy not only fosters stability, but also generates resources for future development. Social reconciliation and peace building. Addressing social divisions and promoting reconciliation is crucial to heal the wounds of war and prevent future conflicts. This may involve promoting dialogue, truth and reconciliation commissions, fostering inter-community relationships, and providing psychological support to affected individuals and communities. So, ChatGPT, telling us the same as you just say, the reconciliation, but I got one more question to you. Do you think what kind of a reconciliation is possible? I know that the ages should pass. How can we possibly reconcile with Russia, or maybe with the new Russia, even with the new Russia? What needs to be done? All right, reparations and money and paid in terms of financial and economic leverages and in the options. But in terms of morale,
of course, it will be very hard. And for me, I always, when I received the question, when Ukraine received the victory in this war, I said that, you know, that it's rather emotional response. Because if you're an optimist, if you think that your glass is full, absolutely full, you say that Ukraine can win this war in this year. But if you start to think more deeply, you understand that actually victory of Ukraine means the stop of Russian history, that Russia will not exist as a state. Because actually, as Russia still preserve itself as a big country, they constantly will think how to conquer Ukraine. Because it's a question of existential, actually, life of Russia. Because they as empire, they constantly will dream how to conquer Ukraine. That's why if at the end of the story, at the end of this war, the Russia will not exist as a big country, that Russia will be divided into several parts, I think that that will be the best solution. For me, it's hard to imagine. Nevertheless, I still remember a map that was demonstrated in the Turkish TV channel approximately 2019 or 2020, several years ago. And this Turkey vision was based on such a question like Turkey peace. Turkey peace, it's like it's response to Russian peace, and they said that all Turkish, not people, but Turkey language people living in Russia in 2050, in 30 years, even less than 30 years, will orient on Ankara. In case of realization of that map, there will be no Russia. It will be a lot of parts of Russia divided into independent states. I think in that case, it will be easier to Ukraine to make contact with that parts of Russia. But it's theory. If we are talking about peace with Russia, even post-war Russia, it's really very hard just because it's the same situation like was in the Second World War. How many people in Europe in 1945 were ready to have a good relationship with Germany? Remembering all those things created by German people, not by Hitler personally, but German people, German army. So that's why it needs really decades just for finding this solution. And for me, really, I think that the best version, not only for Ukraine, but for whole Russian neighbors, then actually, I don't think that the end of the story should be, for example, leaving, I don't know, northern Japanese territory under Russia. I think that they should give it to Japan, return return to Japan. They should return to China some territory occupied, and that is the reason why China finally can change its position towards Russia and said that yes, we will support forces against Russia just because we need our territories. And the other moments, and I think that when all parts of Russia decided that for them it's better not to be in this big empire, in this...
Obviously it's not, because what this empire achieved.
Nothing.
I mean, it's almost 100 years passed after the World War II, and they're using German cars, Japanese televisions and cameras, American Facebook and telephone and smartphones.
And
what? What is it that they bring to the world but the war?
Nothing. Actually, it's a very good phrase. The person who lost the peace, he starts the war. Russia lost this peace. Russia could not give something to this world. That's why Russia decided, okay, if you could not give something, give Microsoft not our company, Mercedes not our company, I don't know, some Japanese technologies not our technologies, and not so big like China. Let's start the war and we find our place. But I think that that approach should be destroyed not only by Ukraine, but our partners, who should understand that they should not create example for a future, and it should be a lesson for any country who will think the same as Russia now thinking.
Thank you. Roman Abramovich is refusing to sign off the £2.3 billion Ukraine was due from last year's sales of Chelsea Soccer Club. Whatever Abramovich says and commands on the matter just does not matter. Just another dirty, wealthy Russian oligarch having his dirty Russian oligarchic reasons for that. What matters is we all have nonetheless reasonable doubts that money will ever reach Ukraine and actual victims of Russian criminal war waged upon Ukraine, as Daily Mail puts it. It seems the sticking point is that Roman Abramovich wants a substantial part of the money to go to Russia, or rather those Russians affected by the conflict. And neither the British government nor the European Commission will agree to such a move while sanctions are in place against Russia. Astonishingly, it seems that Abramovich himself, a sanctioned individual for his closeness to the Putin regime, must sign off on the release of the funds, which has so far declined to do because he wants the money shared across Russia as well as Ukraine. UK's Foreign Office sources have confirmed this is the case. Secretary of State James Cleverly said, "We want to make sure that the money that is released goes exclusively to the recipients it is aimed at. I need full reassurance that this is the case." Ever to happen? Do you think this is going to happen? I mean, okay, Roman Abramovich and his soccer club, that's one thing. But how to control the system? I know that we're shifting the paradigm. We're going through enormous change. The world and the Ukraine just as well as a leader of this change, of this changing paradigm machine. But maybe you can suggest or propose a sort of tool to control how to do it. Okay, we have a law. The court says it needs to be done. We sell something like Roman Abramovich's yacht and his boats and whatever he has, and how to deliver it to concrete people, to people who suffered the most, who lost their family members. And again, European community and Ukraine, working together. Is that the best way?
Absolutely, because first of all, it should be a clear investigation about all this money that's officially belong to oligarchs, but whether it's their money or their so-called person who controlled money that actually belong to Putin. We have such a theory that in Russia, Mr. Putin, he don't want to show that he is a rich person. That's why he has...
I mean, he's
the richest person
in the world. I mean, it's incredible. Why would you ever need that much money if all you want to do is just start the war and lose it all? But, all right,
yes.
That's a different question.
Yes, but what I want to say that all those people who known to be a Russian oligarch, whether they actual Russian oligarchs, because as for me, Russian oligarchs are people who create their money in the 90s. When there was no Putin, because after Putin came to power, for me it was clear that a person who want to be an oligarch should subordinate to Mr. Putin. Mr. Abramovich, if we talk about this personality,
okay, let's talk about him.
If you remember the story of his big growth, at first he was a partner of Boris Berezovsky.
Yes, I remember that.
Then he decided to have a unity with Mikhail Khodorkovsky, with another Russian billionaire, and they want to create the same company. Then, for me, it was clear that Kremlin decided that we should control both of them, and they proposed that you will give to us some part of your assets, but we remain some money on you, and people will think that you're oligarchs. Mr. Khodorkovsky said no. After that, he was in jail. He was sent to prison for many years, and practically as an oligarch, he does not exist. Yes, he has some money in his deposits, but his main assets were destroyed. Mr. Abramovich said yes. After that, he received good preferences. He purchased a lot of companies, thanks to connection with power. Then he sold his company to Russia. And Rosneft appeared after...
To the Kremlin.
Yes, Sibneft he sold to Russia. So for me, Mr. Abramovich is one of those persons who now is official owner of Putin's money. But he's not actual owner. It's Putin.
He's under sanctions. He's individual under sanctions.
Yes.
And we are the collective West is asking him to sign it off. So there is obviously no option for the world to make him sell this soccer club.
Yes.
And give the money to families here in Ukraine. Just take it. You can't do it, or we can.
That's why I big this loan crisis, because I think that the government of UK, if we are talking about Chelsea, should say that that money is not a private of Mr. Abramovich. Chelsea is not a company owned by Mr. Abramovich. It's owned by Mr. Putin, and Putin as a dictator should not have any assets, any money in UK. That's why it should not be Mr. Abramovich's decision what to do with this money.
Absolutely.
This money should be given to that fund. I understand a fear of our partners of corruption in Ukraine. That's why I constantly repeat that European Commission should so control this money. They should not give only advices. They should have direct responsibility.
Right.
And that actually helped Ukraine to finally become an EU member just because European Commission will do that. But returning to Abramovich and other oligarchs of Russia, if there will be direct connection between them and Mr. Putin, it means that all their money and all their private property is not a private property. It's a private property of Mr. Putin, of person who started this war. That's why should be a reason to freeze it, to arrest it, and then to give it, to rebuild Ukraine to this body created as European Commission proposed, headed by EU Commission and Ukraine government, but with the influence of EU Commission, with the guarantee of EU Commission that this money will not be stolen.
Excuse me, but so let me summarize it. Let me put it into one bag. So first of all, the collective West should have enough political will to call, say, Abramovich's money, oligarchs' money, Putin's money, and then expropriate it, take it. And secondly, we need to have some sort of organization and an international body to control the spreading of this money here in Ukraine. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. On June 14, 17, the annual St. Petersburg International Economic Forum took place in Russia. The SPIEF was once indeed a representative format for attracting foreign investments into Russia, but after the Russian aggression, the gatherings under its signboard turned into nothing but a farce. Instead of discussing the future economic growth, Russia turned the event into a circus, literally. The audience was entertained by Russian circus performers who played paratroopers. Most foreign leaders, in particular from the post-Soviet countries, ignored the invitation. The majority of the guests were represented at the ministerial level. The forum itself became a demonstration of the economic isolation of Russia in the world. Not much economy left. Russian technological achievements at the SPIEF included Chinese UAVs brought at internet. Seriously, they were bought at AliExpress online merchant site. A Soviet-time, once a bestseller Lada car, equipped with an engine that just does not run. And as a cherry on the top comes Melitopol cherries that happen to be stolen from the occupied territory of Ukraine. Putin used the SPIEF as a stage for his anti-Western and Ukrainian-phobic propaganda, but it looks pathetic to me. I mean, why?
He still wants to demonstrate that they are part of global economy, that Russia is the 11th economy in the world. Actually, Russia was 11th economy in the world.
Once upon a time.
No, it was 2022, but they will not be in top 20, actually. Russia really was 11th economy, but why it was 11th economy in previous year? Because they still have an option to sell oil and gas. Russian economy, first of all, based on the options of selling those two kind of rural material, yes, so commodity goods. And that helped to them in that year, but I'm not sure that it helped to them in the current year, just because after 4 months of this year, Russian income from oil and gas decreased in 52%, just for understanding, and then stop. But for St. Petersburg, it's an image part of Russia to say that we are part of global economy, but let's be frank, it's really...
What is the reason, excuse me for interrupting, could be the reason for doing this? If you want, I mean, they wanted to turn off the internet. They wanted to turn YouTube off.
Yes.
Seriously. They could cancel Mondays and Tuesdays, just by the way. I mean, what is the reason to show to whom? I mean, that you are a part of the world, while you trying, literally, to invade a neighboring country on an absolutely unbelievable, stupid pretext. And then you are like throwing this fancy party. It helps Ukraine. It only helps Ukraine. I mean, the circus artists at the Economic Forum.
Yeah, and actually...
It's the dead end.
Yeah, but as I said, it's image. It's image for local countries who said that we are great, that whole world dream to be a Russia.
Which countries, for example?
For them, they said that whole West dream to be, and they explained to their local audience, local Russian...
Domestic, I mean Russian.
Domestic, audience. Yes, domestic, okay. That everyone want to conquer our country because they're jealous to us and so on. And such a forum, it's a picture, and they not explain how many leaders are not visited. They show pictures that, for example, President of the United Arab Emirates was in this forum. Of course, they not say the situations that happened during this forum. I'm not sure. It's a rumor.
Luis da Silva, it's Brazil, I believe. They said, no, I won't visit Russia.
Yes.
They never show it. But the whole world knows it. I mean, you have to have a smartphone and just Google it. That's it.
Yes. It was, as I remember, Algeria president and the United Arab Emirates. But it's rumored. I don't know whether it happened or no. But when United Arab Emirates was present at this forum, it was dealt that he will be for a full day here. But someone told to United Arab Emirates president information that in the moment when he sit near to Putin, Russian rockets flew to Kiev, where the several African leaders situated. And United Arab Emirates president, after that, decided goodbye. He said goodbye to Mr. Putin and leave without any any explanation. And it was shock for Putin and for Russia, just because in the program he expected to be a guest for whole day, but he decided to leave it. I'm not sure whether that was the factor that influenced on him, that he decided go not to drink water or tea, go for airport and to leave Russia. And the reason that he knows that several presidents of African countries, including the president of South African Republic, with whom United Arab Emirates has good trade relationship, and his advisor said to him that you're sitting with a person who want to kill the president of South African Republic. It's not good.
Jesus Christ! It was
yes.
What a surprise!
Yes,
this person is killing people in Ukraine. I mean, for the whole year, kills children, abducts children. He kills. His army rapes women here, and I mean, this is what I always were emphasizing, that you really have to go personal. If you really don't understand which side to choose, Russian, the Kremlin side, or Ukrainian, and the side of the truth, come over to Ukraine, lose your family members, let Russia abduct your children, rape your wife, destroy your house, then come and we talk.
Absolutely. That's why actually when I was in the Egyptian TV channel and they asked me why it's so important for Ukraine to see all those African leaders in Kiev, I said, you know, for me the main moment, they visited not only Kiev, they visited Bucha. And they saw what was going on there by their own eyes. When they saw there by their own eyes, it was the same when European leaders saw by their own eyes the picture of Bucha in April 2022, and they understand that theoretically it can happen in their countries. And after that, support to Ukraine becomes seriously stronger. And Ukraine received tanks. Now we're talking about F-16 fighter jets. Who knows what will be after? It could be not only ATACMS. Some people said about even more serious rockets that exist, of course, not for 500 kilometers, but, for example, for 5,000 kilometers, like Russia used, actually. And I think that quite possible that the direct visits of global leaders of different countries, they influence their positions, and, of course...
Amen to that.
Yes.
Thank you for your detailed answers, Ivan.
Thank you.
It was really a pleasure to have you here. We had Ivan Us, PhD in economics, chief consultant of the Center for Foreign Policy Studies of the National Institute of Strategic Studies. Thank you one more time for being here with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Now, that will be all, folks. Thank you so very much for your time you spent with us. I'm Henry Keane, and it was my show, Talk for More. Join us, the Gaze Online, and feed your thirst for truth and adventure into the enthralling realm of international news and politics. Take a good care, and see you very soon.